I still remember that morning, the one that started it all, standing in my slippers, clutching a mug of burnt coffee and staring at this crisp white piece of paper taped to my door. You ever get that feeling like your heart just drops into your stomach? That was me for about 3 seconds, until I noticed the word premises was spelled Premissis. That's when I just started laughing, because only one person in Maple Grove Estates would bother with an official notice and screw up a word that bad Karen Blackwood, our HOA president and self-appointed queen of suburban doom. And let me tell you, that was the moment I knew Karen had finally gone and shot herself in the foot, and this time there'd be no walking it off. I'm David Morrison. I moved into Maple Grove Estates a year and a half ago, finally escaping decades of apartment living and dreaming of weekends grilling out on my porch, friendly waves from neighbors, that good old American dream. Well, nobody told me the HOA president ran this place like a petty dictatorship, slapping folks with random rules and wielding that power like some kind of medieval scepter. The first day I pulled in, before the moving truck's engine was even cold, there she was, Karen, materializing out of thin air. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses so big they probably got their own zip code. She hit me with a rule about moving trucks. Said they were only allowed between 2 and 4 p.m. on weekdays. It was Saturday, 10 a.m. I just pointed at the official rules in my welcome packet, but she gave me that saccharine smile, said the rules had been verbally updated at the last meeting. The note started the very next week. Dear resident, please ensure your garbage bins are precisely 3 feet from the curb, not 3.5. I measured, they were. A note about aggressive parking in my own driveway, still have no clue what that means. She once slipped a note under my door because, get this, my breathing was too loud when I walked by her window. Month 3. Suddenly, I'm getting official citations. Grass too tall by a 1/4-inch mailbox numbers, not reflective enough curtains that didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. And everyone came with a $50 fine. Thing is, I fought every single one at the monthly HOA meetings and won, but those meetings, man, they were a circus. Karen, up at the head of the table, gavel in hand, acting like she was judge, jury, and executioner all in one. You couldn't get a word in edgewise without her slamming that gavel and yelling, out of order. She even had a nameplate, President Blackwood. I mean, who does that? The other neighbors just kept their heads down, thankful it wasn't their turn. But after my 3rd win in a row, Bob Stevenson from 2 houses down pulled me aside. He said Karen had driven out 3 families before me. The Johnsons left after 6 months, the Patels lasted 8, and poor Mrs. Henderson, sweetest lady, 70-something widow, her daughter had to move her to assisted living just to get her away from Karen's constant harassment. But I wasn't leaving. I'd worked too hard for this place. I'd rebuilt my life after a divorce, spent a decade climbing out of debt, and there was no way some petty tyrant with a clipboard was going to scare me off. Karen started playing chess, real next-level petty. Timed how long it took me to bring in my garbage bins, issued a citation when I was 47 minutes past her deadline. Complained my doorbell was too loud, fined me for dandelions in a strip of grass that technically belonged to the city. Each week, some new nitpick, some new way to chip away at me. But nothing, and I mean nothing, came close to that eviction notice taped to my door. That was her masterpiece of idiocy. Looked almost official, right down to a fake embossed seal and legal-sounding language she'd clearly ripped off the internet. Gave me 10 days to vacate the premises or face legal action and criminal trespass charges. Used phrases like pursuant to statute, and hereby decreed like she was some 17th century noble. But the typos gave it away, along with the part where she signed it, President Karen Blackwood, Esquire. Karen isn't a lawyer, she just watches a lot of bad TV. Now, most people might have panicked, but what Karen didn't know was before I switched to software, I'd spent 15 years working real estate law. And let me tell you, HOAs do not have the power to evict anyone, and forging a county seal is a federal offense. I did what any good legal nerd would do, photographed every inch of the document, got the fake seal, the watermark, every stupid little flourish, she added, and called up my old friend Sarah Winters, an attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. She practically spit out her coffee when I told her what was going on. Within the hour, we had a game plan. Within a week, we'd filed charges, fraud, forgery, harassment, impersonating a government official. The detective assigned James Park White Collar Crime Division went full bulldog on the case. Turns out I wasn't her only victim. They dug up 5 years' worth of fake documents, bogus citations, and a paper trail of people she'd harassed right out of the neighborhood. There was a whole filing cabinet in her home office, every neighbor's name, their violations color-coded and ranked by some insane point system she'd invented. According to her spreadsheet, I was a level 5 violator. Park said he'd never seen anyone document their own crimes so thoroughly. The day we walked into court, Karen was decked out in a power suit so blue you'd think she was running for office. Her lawyer, this twitchy guy named Gerald, tried to claim it was all a big misunderstanding. Said Karen just cares too much about property values. The judge, Catherine Williams' steel gray hair voice, like she could break granite, was having none of it. She'd reviewed the evidence, saw right through all of Karen's theatrics. Not only had Karen forged that eviction notice, they found templates for fake legal documents on her laptop and even a draft of a fake lien against a neighbor who planted roses she didn't like. Sarah, my attorney, was merciless. She laid out how Karen's stunts cost families real money and how Mrs. Henderson's doctor linked her health problems directly to Karen's harassment. The judge's stare alone was enough to make Karen start sweating. When pressed, Karen's lawyer begged for a deal, said she'd pay whatever it took just to make it go away. But I wasn't about to settle for a check and let her move on to terrorize someone else. I wanted real consequences, something she'd never escape. So after hours of negotiations, Sarah landed a deal nobody saw coming. Karen would hand over a 10% stake in her own property to me. Her lawyer tried to talk us down, but Sarah held firm. You ever see a woman realize she's about to start paying rent to the guy she tried to evict priceless? So now every month Karen has to write me a check, $800, based on fair market value for the privilege of living in her own house. The court yanked her HOA title, barred her from ever serving again anywhere, and ordered her to go door to door with a supervisor and personally apologize to every neighbor she ever harassed. When she came to my door, hands shaking, supervisor standing behind her letter, trembling, I nearly felt sorry for her. Nearly. The news spread like wildfire. All those folks who'd suffered in silence, suddenly they had stories to share. Tom Garcia finally admitted Karen tried to fine him for a Mexican flag sticker during Hispanic Heritage Month. The Williams family told us she'd measured their kids' chalk art and claimed it was too visually disruptive. Turns out everyone had a Karen story, and for the first time, nobody was afraid to speak up. Karen tried to hold on to her dignity, but every trip to the mailbox meant whispers, every rent check, a reminder of her failure. She started leaving the house before sunrise, groceries done by 6 a.m., just to avoid running into anyone. I used every penny of her rent checks to start the Maple Grove Legal Aid Fund, designed to help folks fight HOA abuse. The founding documents even list initial funding K. Blackwood. I hope that stings. We've already helped a couple families in nearby neighborhoods take down their own HOA tyrants. The new board was voted in decent folks, and just like that, all of Karen's nonsense rules vanished. Curtains could be any color, doorbells could ring, garbage bins could sit out until midnight. For the first time, people actually waved to each other. Kids drew chalk on the sidewalk and nobody cared. 6 months after that bogus eviction notice, the final court order dropped. Karen faced over $200,000 in fines and only dodged jail time because the judge wanted her working off her debt, not rotting in a cell. When the judge read the verdict, Karen stood there, mouth open, face ashen, finally realizing she wasn't above the law. And maybe you're thinking, well, that's justice served, right? But here's the kicker. Last week, a neighbor found another official notice taped to his door. Only this time it was a welcome letter from the new HOA board inviting everyone to a block party. Funny how the same piece of tape that once spread fear now just held a sign-up sheet for homemade chili. Go figure. So tell me, where do you stand? Was Karen a monster or just a product of a broken system? Is there any hope for neighborhoods that let one person grab that much power? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear about your own neighborhood drama, or heck, your wildest HOA horror story. Because after what I lived through, I'm betting we've all got one.